Let's talk about more injuries starting to pile up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Justyn Ross, Travis Kelce, Jaylen Watson, and others having a solid practice. Then let's talk about Chris Jones sharing another cryptic message as negotiation talks are ongoing, and he still isn't at training camp. But first, how about those? All right, first up, we are officially past the halfway mark in Chiefs training camp. Time flies, and practice today went for nearly 2.5 hours in full pads. The temperatures were in the mid-70s or so, a little bit of overcast, but of course, the humidity was still thick with 2 Cs. And the players who didn't practice today were Mike Danna, who is still nursing a calf injury that has kept him out of practice for a few days now. L'Jarius Sneed has been dealing with some knee soreness and swelling, which is a nagging injury going back to last season, I believe, as well as OTAs, but hopefully he will be fully healed up in time for the start of the season. It's a contract year after all, so he's going to want to ball out. Kadarius Toney is recovering from the knee surgery. He had to clean up his meniscus after he aggravated it during the first day of training camp. He's not going to be ready for a little while at least. Andy Reid is hoping to have him back by the start of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up on IR and misses the first 4 games of the season, as the coaching staff just chooses the ultra-conservative route with him based on his injury history. Jody Fortson is another guy who's had some unfortunate injuries, and he's out of practice right now after dislocating his shoulder last week. And while it appears it won't require surgery, we don't really have a timeline for his return at this point, and I wouldn't be surprised if he sits the preseason out. And then for some newer players to report on, cornerback Reese Taylor was out with a hamstring injury, and defensive end Charles Omenihu was out with what was reported as a calf spasm today. Calf injury of sorts, not sure exactly what it is, and with the D-line growing more thin, with Danna and Omenihu nursing injuries, Turk Wharton just returned, more on him in a bit, but Malik Herring and Joshua Kando are 2 who are benefiting the most reps-wise right now, getting plenty of practice. However, it was reported today that Derek Nottie, Daniel Wise, and George Karlaftis were manning the line on first-team defense in 11s, and even with all the injuries, Felix Anudike Uzama, the Chiefs' first-round draft pick from this past draft, still wasn't seen practicing with the ones as he continues to get up to speed. Anyway, back to injuries, because it was also reported that linebacker Drew Tranquil didn't practice today. He was out for a day or 2 recently due to a neck strain, and while it hasn't been reported yet what kept him out of practice today, it could be that neck injury flaring up a bit and the team just deciding they want to play it safe and rest him up. Lastly, wide receiver Ty Scott, the man who the Chiefs signed in the wake of John Ross unexpectedly retiring, also didn't practice today, though no word yet on exactly why. Could be minor, but we shall see. And then, while those players did not practice, there were 2 out there who were limited, and those were punter Tommy Townsend, who had a light ankle sprain the other day at practice, and running back Isaiah Pacheco, who is on the tail end of his rehab from off-season shoulder surgery. The good news for Pop, though, is that it's reported he should be back and allowed to initiate contact at practice by August 20th. Great news! And then, with Pacheco still limited, Deneric Prince, Jerick McKinnon, and CEH are all continuing to work in and get plenty of reps. But speaking of Pacheco, he spoke with NFL Network, who was at Chiefs training camp yesterday, and he said he's feeling phenomenal. The rehab has been great, and he's, quote, very close to a return. He's been jealous, though, every day at practice, watching teammates being able to fly all around while he's still limited on the sideline at times. He then said year 2, though, is going to be a lot better for him. He has a better understanding of the scheme, is more patient in the backfield, and has more knowledge of the pass protection side of things. And, quote, whatever coach has for me, I'm willing to play whatever position to help the team win. Kick returner, running back, don't matter. I'm going to be that guy who brings the energy. Pacheco then said Deneric Prince is pretty much in the same position that he was in last year on offense, and therefore he's been helping Prince along the way, showing him what he can since he knows the system much better now. He also complimented Pat Mahomes.
Pat who? Pat Mahomes. Pat who? Pat Mahomes.
Saying he's been great at being the leader of the team. He said there's not a day we take off. Even on the off days, it's all about winning the day, understanding more how Pat works, and bettering himself. I mean, how can you not love Isaiah Pacheco? Next up, someone else who recently felt the love from the team he calls family was defensive tackle Turk Wharton, who spoke to the media today after being able to pass his physical and get off the PUP list yesterday. During his recovery, he had a lot of encouragement from his teammates, and he's been attacking his rehab like a pro. And then yesterday, upon his return to practice, his teammates celebrated him, cheering him on, which honestly took him a moment to process as he took it all in, and he said he felt welcomed back basically by family. He also said this is his first serious injury, so the whole experience has been new to him. He was happy for the guys when they won the Super Bowl, but it was hard because he really wanted to be out there.
Like I said, I'm ready to go. I'm tired of watching. Kind of feel like a cheerleader right now. But it's coming. It's coming.
And right now, he's just preparing to get back to 100% and take the strides needed so that he can play. And someone else needed out there is another defensive tackle, and Chris Jones. The situation continues to remain quiet for the most part, cryptic but quiet. It's hard to know what to read into during negotiations like this, but I will say, I did not like seeing Chris Jones share lyrics from a Kevin Gates song today on Instagram that said, "I guess all good things must come to an end." I mean, hopefully, he just means the good thing that is coming to an end is him being able to relax a bit at home instead of being at Andy Reid's insane training camp, but who freaking knows? Deanna Rossini from ESPN spoke about the situation a bit on the Pat McAfee show today, and here's what she had to say.
The most recent stuff, I had a conversation with someone this morning that's involved in the negotiations, and they still feel really optimistic they're going to get it done. Look, the number Chris Jones wants, it's a big number. So that's one of those where I think it feels a little icky right now, but I think it's going to work out by the time we get to at least the third, fourth week of camp here.
And what I'm going to keep my eyes on is what she said here. They still feel really optimistic they're going to get it done. She then said the team was indeed surprised when he didn't show up to camp. They fully expected him to be there, and that's why Andy Reid was surprised and a bit frustrated that he limited his contact with the team and hasn't showed up. However, there's still optimism on both sides that a deal will get done. But I do have to add this bit from Diana's interview today. Near the end, she said, "Now, could it go off track? We've seen it happen." Well, Deanna Rossini, I do not appreciate the negative words being spoken, so never do that again. In all seriousness, I do remain optimistic myself, but we are ultimately going to have to wait and see until a deal does get done in ink. Nothing is 100% certain. And I think James Palmer of NFL Network said it best yesterday. Quote, "The defense is having a good camp, but Chris Jones is needed." Why, yes. Yes, he is. And remember, even if a new extension doesn't get done with the team, he is still under contract until next season, and there's not an immediate concern. I do not think the Chiefs would trade him before the trade deadline this season, not if they're trying to get back and win another Super Bowl going back-to-back for the first time since the Patriots in the early thousands. But I guess that's where I want to get your thoughts on the situation. Are you more nervous as no new deal happens with each passing day, or nah, it's going to get done? Also, do you make anything at all about Chris's continued cryptic messages, specifically the one today? Or since he also did this prior to his last contract extension, do you think it's a big ol' nothing burger? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, let's look at some standouts from today's practice. Mahomes found a nice connect with Richie James on an outside scramble here on this play. Another wide receiver who I talked about in great detail yesterday, video up here, was Justyn Ross, who had a great one-on-one route against Echo Boydo. He had another good route yesterday, and he's continuing to impress and have a nice camp thus far. He's probably making the 53-man roster, at least how I have it right now. He had another solid catch here from Blaine Gabbert, who was honestly a bit off the mark, but Ross made a great adjustment and hauled it in, and I like to see that a whole lot. And while he has continued to make nice plays, there was a very nice play from safety Mike Edwards here as Ross jumped up for the ball and it went through his hands, and of course, the ball hawk himself was more than ready to snag that ball out of the air. Mahomes later tried connecting with Ross here on this play, who did make a nice jump on the ball to go up and get it, but Jaylen Watson was ready and made an even better play, and I'm expecting big things from the Fab Five this season as they all head into year two, except obviously Najee Johnson, who recently tore his ACL. Prayers up for that guy, but dude, Jaylen Watson does not play any games. Very excited about that man. Another DB who had a nice pass breakup was safety Brian Cook, one of the Fab Five, who was against Travis Kelce and had a great finish here, not allowing Kelce to maintain control. Linebacker Nick Bolton also made an incredible play here, picking off Mahomes, who would have been sacked on a blitz from Jaylen Watson, I might add, but was allowed to keep scrambling and lofted one up to Skyy. But Bolton was able to knock the ball up into the air and catch his own PBU, turning it into an INT. And that's just another example of many of Nick Bolton being at the right place at the right time. And while Mahomes didn't connect on some of those, he did hit MVS on a nice crossing route here as he threw off his back foot to avoid pressure from the right. And then he threw an absolute dart on this play here to Justyn Watson. Great one, but he did have another throw to Justyn Watson, a perfect pass, it was noted, and he dropped it, sadly. Do not do that, Justyn. It's also worth noting, speaking of Justyn's, that Justyn Ross was getting a lot of work in today with the second team offense. He did sprinkle in a bit with the ones, but the main receivers in the first team offense today was MVS, Skyy Moore, and Justyn Watson. However, Rashee Rice reportedly had a nice grab in 11, something we need to get used to from him. And something else we are plenty used to is the Mahomes to Kelce connection in the middle of the field, with Kelce winning his route per usual here and getting open. And speaking of Kelce, tight end Noah Gray had the highest of praise for him today, saying he's learned a lot from Trav since getting drafted here. Kelce's been a great mentor and an even better friend. But when asked if Gray thinks he's learned enough from Kelce to go out there on offense and emulate him, he said,
"You now feel like maybe you play like Travis a little bit, or you emulate him in some ways?"
Not at all.
Not at all?
No. I learn a lot from him because, I think he's the greatest tight end to ever play the game. But, Travis Kelce for a reason. I'm just trying to do my job to the best of my ability.
It's impossible to emulate the best tight end in the game. Yes and amen. However, he does glean a lot from Trav by watching him play, and especially gleans from him in the film room as Kelce talks through his thoughts mid-route as they watch plays back. Overall, though, Gray is having a great camp and wants to continue going out there being the best teammate he can be, doing all that's asked of him to help the team win. Another teammate who wants to do just that is the veteran quarterback Blaine Gabbert, who had one of the highlights of the day, connecting on a deep ball to Cornell Powell. And man, that was a dime from Gabbert and should bring all of Chiefs Kingdom confidence that he is the right man to back up Patrick Mahomes. He's continued to make play after play here at camp so far. Excited about him for sure. Anyway, Gabbert said he's fortunate to be here in KC with a quarterback like Mahomes after just being with one of the best ever in Tom Brady. Patrick has been asking him questions about how Tom operated, and Blaine is just trying to bring ideas to the table to ultimately help Patrick be better than he already is. And honestly, it's Patrick Mahomes himself asking the questions and keeping an open mind on how to get better any way he possibly can. Championship mindset. You gotta love it. He also said the Chiefs are a much different team age-wise than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were one of the older teams in the league over the last few years. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are a pretty young team overall. He's the oldest guy on the team along with Travis, so that's been different for him after backing up a certified geriatric in Tom Brady. But enough of that skeleton, because I want to touch on the Chiefs' 16-play drive they had today starting from the 2-yard line. Mahomes reportedly connected a couple times with Skyy, 2 to Justyn Watson, 1 to Kelce, 1 to MVS, and also Deneric Prince. Meanwhile, on defense, Jaylen Watson had a sack and a PBU. Bolton and Karlaftis each had a tackle for loss. And many of these plays were more than likely highlighted earlier in this video, but these long drive drills are a core piece of Andy Reid's camps that helps build mental toughness that the team can carry on with them into the season. Andy's camp is extremely difficult, but the grind is worth it, and the success of Andy's teams over the years is definite proof of that. I mean, look at this tweet from Warren Sharp earlier today. He said Andy Reid has coached 4 quarterbacks for over a year, and that's Donovan McNabb, Mike Vick, Alex Smith, and Patrick Mahomes. He helped all of them make Pro Bowls. He has only 2 losing seasons since 2000 with many quarterbacks, 2 in 23 years. In today's football, he's the #1 coach you want, #1 best coach in the NFL, and I wholeheartedly agree. And with all that being said, that's all for today. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?